Let's get more on this from Jeffrey Sommers, an associate professor of political economy at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Thanks for joining us here. So if the government shutdown leads to a default in the U.S. debt, what could that lead to? What could be the effects of that?
Well, of course, the most dangerous aspect of this is that it affects the United States' credit rating. And the United States, of course, is an economy which lives on global credit and the foreign purchase of its treasury bills. So this puts it in a very precarious position moving forward in terms of the ability to fund many of its programs domestically.
Looking at the way things stand right now, how likely do you think it is that we will get to that situation, that there will be a default?
Well, it's very difficult to tell. There are significant pressures, of course, working to ensure that we don't actually cross that threshold. However, one has to say that the Tea Party has acted very irrationally at times, and so it's rather difficult to say whether or not they can be curbed by more moderate elements, or I should even say more realpolitik elements within the Republican Party. Certainly that effort is already underway. The Koch brothers, figures like Paul Ryan, very big new players like Scott Walker in the Wisconsin Republican Party have all worked to try and bring an end to this impasse and to have us not cross that threshold.
Do you think the backers of the Tea Party, like the Koch brothers, for example, have created, say, a Frankensteins monster, something that was outside of their control? They funded the Tea Party, they brought it into existence, but they didn't realize that there was all this other baggage that would come with it, this very strong anti-government sense?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so they've unleashed, in the most pejorative sense of the term, these populist elements that have the torches and the pitchforks, to use your Frankenstein metaphor, and they are rather difficult to control, as it turns out. My guess is that they will be reined in, but I think it's proving far more difficult than the Koch brothers and their organizations, such as ALEC, had anticipated.
What about the global business community? I mean, aren't they all crying at this point for this impasse to go away and for the debt ceiling to be raised?
This is all very unsettling for the global credit markets, and in particular for countries like the United Kingdom, for which finance is so important. So for those countries in which finance is a very, very big player within their economies, they are very, very nervous. But really for all economies, I mean, this is very, very troubling because it threatens a disruption to global credit, which then, of course, impacts demand in the economy, which even for economies which are more manufacturing based, ultimately results in a loss of sales for them. So yes, I think everyone wants this to end.
How do you think this could affect the U.S.'s global ties? For example, we have China already calling for the introduction of a new reserve currency aside from the dollar.
Well, I think it just gives further fuel to that move. And of course, China has been trying to see if it could coordinate a new order, which would be less dollar-based. And of course, we have China, which is now importing more and more of its oil, more of it, of course, directly from Russia, and as well as plans to import more natural gas. And so my guess is there are going to be more pushes from China for bilateral trade agreements that just bypass the dollar altogether. And that's going to make it more difficult for the United States in terms of funding its social obligations at home.
All right, we have to leave it there. Jeffrey Sommers, assistant professor of political economy at UW-Milwaukee. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.